Good evening. My name is Rebecca Fricka, and I am the president of the League of Women Voters of Amherst. The League is a nonpartisan organization that informs voters about elections, voting, and issues. As an organization, we neither support nor oppose political parties or candidates. For decades, the League of Women Voters of Amherst has been providing the town of Amherst with many services that increase citizen awareness of town government, including publications like They Represent You, the Election Guide, and Your Amherst Government. We have also organized Candidates Nights. Candidates Nights are orchestrated literally down to the minute, so I will be brief. The event starts with finding a good date, which is not easy, as most of you probably know, and spreading the word so that each and every person running saves the date. We have a script. We have an independent moderator, and we assure that all of the candidates have the same amount of time to pitch themselves and their experience to the voters of Amherst. Thank you to the candidates for running and for being here tonight. Thank you to the leaguers who helped to set this up, and thank you, the voters, for educating yourselves before the vote. I would now like to introduce our moderator. Jean Turdak has been a League member for 35 years. She is currently on the League of Women Voters Northampton Area Board of Directors and is immediate past president of the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts. Jean is currently an off-board member for the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts, serving on their membership committee and human resource committee. Jean is also a state board member on the Lottie Sharfman Education Fund. Thank you to Jean for being here tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for coming to Candidates Forum this evening. Before we begin, I want to do a little housekeeping. I would like you to ask you to please turn off your cell phone and please no flash photos. Both are quite distracting. Please keep all electioneering in the lobby of the auditorium. Candidates Night is one of the many voter service activities that the League of Women Voters provides throughout the year. Others include registering voters, speaking out on policies, and advocating for an informed electorate. Tonight's program is divided into two parts. The first panel features the uncontested candidates running for town-wide offices, as well as the candidates running for Jones Library trustees. The second panel will be candidates running for Select Board and School Committee. Uncontested candidates will have 1.5 minutes to tell us their reasons for running for office. Those running in the contested races will have 1 minute to introduce themselves and make their opening remarks. Questions will be posed to those running in contested races, and each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. At the end of the question and answer period, each candidate will have 1 minute for closing remarks. The timekeepers, our three ladies right in the front, are sitting in the front row. When there is a half minute left on your speaking time, the timekeeper will hold up a card that says 30 seconds, indicating that you have 30 seconds to finish. No 15? Okay. I have that here. I'm going to take that out. And then we'll ask you to, there's no 15 seconds, so then please wrap up when you see the stop card. If you continue speaking after the stop card is held up, I will say thank you and move on to the next candidate, but I will allow you to finish your sentence. There are 3.5 by 5 cards are available if you would like to ask a question. Raise your hand and you will be given a card. Please be sure to phrase your statement as a question. When completed, raise your hand again and someone will be around to pick it up. The questions are for those running for contested seats only. Tonight's forum is being taped by Amherst Media for later broadcast on Channel 17. Okay, 7:05. We're a little bit off here. Okay, let's get started. Let me introduce those running as uncontested candidates. They are Jim Pistrang, who is running for town moderator, David Williams, running for the Housing Authority, Jeff Lee, running for the Redevelopment Authority, and Carol Gray, running for the Oliver Smith Will seat. You will each have 1.5 minutes to tell us why you are running for this office.
Hi, my name is Jim Pistrang, and I'm running for re-election as Amherst Town Moderator. My primary role as moderator is to preside over the meeting, ensuring that rules and procedures are followed, members and citizens are given an opportunity to express their views and votes are taken. As the moderator, I have secondary roles as well. I educate town meeting members regarding procedural issues, and I clearly explain the process of the meeting. I work to keep the meetings efficient and on track, and I work to educate the public about the history and value of the town meeting form of government. As moderator, I assisted in successfully implementing electronic voting at town meeting, bringing additional accuracy, efficiency, and accountability to the voting process. My goal as moderator will be to encourage participation and understanding, to guide the meeting through the process of debating and voting, and to maintain the Amherst tradition of a well-informed, engaged, and community-minded population. Thank you.
Oh, next, I'm sorry.
Good evening. I'm David W. Williams. I am a resident of Amherst. I've lived here for the past 20 years. And I'm running for election to the Amherst Housing Authority. 4 months ago, I applied for and was selected and appointed to fill a vacancy on the board for the Housing Authority. So now I'm running to fill the position that I filled for 4 months. I'm interested in this position because I would like to use my skills, my talent, and energies to assist the town of Amherst in preserving and expanding decent, safe, affordable housing for low and moderate income households, elders, and persons with disabilities. I bring to this position, the board that I'm serving on, 35 years of senior level experience in higher education. I have worked with municipalities around the country in addressing issues related to low-income, disadvantaged individuals. Thanks.
Thank you. Carol?
Thank you. Hello, my name is Carol Gray, and I am a former public defender, and I'm a grad student in political science. I'm also a town meeting member. I'm interested in being the Oliver Smith Will elector because I care a lot about human rights, and this is a position that works for charitable causes. I also care a lot about grassroots participation in government. This is part of why I support town meeting, and part of why I think with this position, I've always heard about the Oliver Smith charities, but I didn't know what they were. And we always go and vote for them, but who really knows who qualifies? And I realized there's a lot of people who could qualify for benefits and they don't know it. So there needs to be more transparency. To that end, I'm just going to tell you a few people who would qualify. If you are a trade apprentice under age 21, you could get $600 put in the bank from age 21 to 22. If you are a young woman who's on your first marriage between the ages of 18 and 45, you could get $100 for getting married. If you're an unmarried girl under 21 years and you are looking to get a graduate degree as an RN, you could get $360. If you are a widow, you could get $200 annually. Who knew all this? This is really important to have this transparency. We shouldn't have benefits and power be consolidated within a small group of people in the know. It should be grassroots participation, maximum civic engagement, both in our town and our town meeting and in this position. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Jeff Lee, a 24-year resident of Amherst and current town meeting member, and I'm running for Redevelopment Authority. If you're not aware of what the Redevelopment Authority does, it acts as a town agency to eliminate and redevelop areas deemed as substandard, decadent, or blighted. And Amherst has engaged in one extensive and I think quite successful redevelopment project in the past. That was the development of Boltwood Walk, which brought you the Ann Whalen Apartments, Clark House, Bang Center, the current Rayo's Coffee or Share Coffee building, and the building that houses Johnny's Tavern, as well as the parking garage. So if you elect me to ARA, I hope to contribute a spirit of openness, inquisitiveness, and collaboration to the Redevelopment Authority. I would strive to learn from the current ARA members, the planning board, and other resources of potential redevelopment opportunities in town. I would listen to community members about your ideas and concerns. And I would work to identify, build consensus, and pursue the implementation of a project that will meet Amherst's redevelopment needs. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Peggy Roberts, who is stepping down from the ARA after a long tenure that stretches back to the Boltwood Walk project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we will hear from the candidates for the Jones Library trustees. There are 4 candidates, all running for 3-year terms. There are 2 open seats. The candidates are in alphabetical order: Kitty Axelson Berry, Tamsin Eli, Sigrid Nilsson, and Austin Surratt. You will each have 1.5-minute opening statement.
Hi, I'm Kitty Axelson Berry, and it's good to see everyone here tonight. I've been a loving patron of the Jones Library since I moved here almost 5 decades ago. I came here as a student. More recently, when I joined town meeting, I became concerned because I realized that the Jones Library was obviously being neglected and becoming kind of shabby. I learned that the trustees' solution to underfunding for maintenance and upkeep, repairs, was to embark on an outsized demolition and expansion project without even acknowledging that the annual budget would have to be increased. I got involved. The trustees twice turned down my application to fill a vacancy. I questioned their expansion schemes. I ran for trustee last year and came in first among 3 challengers, but as usual, incumbents prevailed. Now I'm running again. The Jones Library and the branches are in even worse shape than they were a few years ago. There's a $100,000 budget shortfall that's looming next year. The trustees want to take more and more out of the library's endowment to meet ordinary expenses, and they insist on limiting public engagement.
Thank you. Tamsin?
Thank you. I'm Tamsin Ely, and I'm running for re-election to the board. As a librarian, I know libraries transform lives. I witnessed this as a community college library director, and I've seen it at the Jones. Libraries offer opportunity, access, and informed help from staff who seek to meet the needs of all residents. Examples include ESL students who proudly learn English, second graders benefiting from a special program funded by the Friends, during which they sign up for their own library cards and receive a special book, seniors getting help with computer devices at all 3 branches. There are countless other instances in which our libraries clearly transform lives in our communities. We cannot look back to what libraries used to be. We need to look forward, anticipate needs, and provide sufficient space, services, collections, and programs for everyone who wants and needs to use the Jones. I am proud of the progress we have made on the board. Despite town budget cuts and other fiscal constraints, we have sought to protect the endowment, and we did bring the draw way down from where it had been in a previous board, while still maintaining staffing levels and increasing part-time pay and benefit in accordance with town policies. These are complicated times, and we have many challenges for the Jones and its branches. But as a librarian and a board member, I will work diligently to protect staff and services and to anticipate future needs of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Sigrid?
Thank you.
Sigurd.
Hi, I'm Sigurd Nilsson, and as a library trustee candidate, I'm focusing on 3 main areas of concern for the historic Jones Library. First, a secure financial future. The Jones Library is currently facing significant funding shortfalls. Decisions made in the next few years will be crucial. The current trustees have proposed increasing the draw on the endowment. I think this would be a short-sighted approach that would have long-term consequences. We need to plan long-term. Second, good stewardship principles. In recent years, the condition of the historic Jones Building has been allowed to deteriorate. The front entrance has been neglected with peeling lead-based paint around the doorway. This kind of neglect and lack of basic maintenance cannot continue. Good stewardship also includes things as simple as cleaning and better organizing the interior. The Jones Library is a town gem. It deserves better care. Third, future system-wide library planning. The North Amherst Library still does not have an accessible public restroom, 28 years after the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed. I commend the citizens who brought forward a petition for a design for a public restroom, and I would be committed to carrying this plan forward. Also, in the proposed multi-million-dollar demolition expansion plan for the Jones Library, many were struck by the lack of reference to the branch libraries.
Thank you.
Amherst has a three-building system, and we need to plan as a three-building system.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Austin?
Libraries are places of hope where the world opens up to ourselves and our community. Libraries knit our town together by providing services and technologies and books to all of our citizens. Libraries are places where people who love books find refuge in a time when many question whether or not books are still relevant. And libraries protect our past and point us to our future. The work of carrying out those tasks is done magnificently in our three great libraries, the Jones, the Munson, and the North Amherst Library. It's the job of the trustees to help in that task by managing the libraries well. We manage the libraries well when we protect the financial integrity of the library, as we did when we reduced the endowment draw, so that now, when the budget is tight, we can use the earnings on the endowment to protect programs and prevent staff layoffs. Libraries are managed well when the trustees undertake aggressive fundraising, as we have, and doubled our fundraising in 4 years. And libraries are managed well when the Board of Trustees cooperates well and collaborates so that it can plan for the future, as we have done in proposing a sensible plan for the renovation of the Jones and are now undertaking a comprehensive plan for the branches. My name is Austin Sarrett, and I ask for your vote on March 27th.
Thank you. Now we will have questions from the audience. The candidates will have 1.5 minutes to respond to the questions. I have a few here for you. This is for all 4 of you. Where do you stand on expanding and renovating the Jones Library? Is this a priority for you? Who would like to start? I want to start at Austin. Why don't you start at that end and we'll come this way?
It is a priority for me. The plan for the expansion and renovation of the Jones emerged from an extensive process of public consultation. We did a survey of 900 respondents, and of the things that they wanted to see happen in the Jones, they wanted more space for reading, they wanted more space for quiet study, they wanted more space for noisy talk, and they wanted more space for teens. We consulted with the staff, and we consulted with the branch librarians. And what we heard was that the space in the Jones was inadequate to the needs of the Jones. Many towns close to us have renovated and expanded their libraries. And what have they found? The renovated and expanded libraries have been engines of economic development and cultural enrichment. I think the renovation and expansion of the Jones will stand in good stead for the town of Amherst.
Thank you. Next.
I oppose the demolition expansion plan for the Jones. As I said in my opening statement, number one, they didn't consider the other 2 branches in their planning when they were looking at how the Jones could better meet the needs of the Amherst community. Also, if you look at the condition of the current Jones Library, they have a hard time maintaining the building as it is. This would be an expanded building, and there's no indication that they have the funding to maintain the building. Also, it would require destroying 40% of the current building, a building that was built only 25 years ago. It's ADA compliant. It was built to last. It has a metal roof, it's brick. Yes, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the interior of the Jones Library, but I believe that the Jones can accommodate the needs that the community has placed on it by looking at the interior space, restructuring that, yes, fixing that leaky atrium. But we don't need a $50 million expansion.
Tamsin?
I am in favor of renovating and expanding the Jones. I've seen the needs of the patrons who come in. I've heard it from the library department heads that they cannot meet the needs of the people requesting services in their departments. The building is not ADA compliant. If you made the existing building ADA compliant, you'd have to move all the stacks, and there's no place to put those stacks and the books on them because a wheelchair cannot get through the stacks. One elevator is not ADA compliant. There are 7 staircases and 2 separate elevators and a lot of places where various activities have gone on, especially in the basement, that have been dangerous. I feel we need more space, open space, flexible space to meet the needs of the community. It's clear to me that we will be able to maintain a lot of historic features, but I think that for the children, the teens, special collections users, and all the other people who need the services of the Jones Library, that we need to renovate and expand the space in order to meet their needs.
Thank you. Kitty?
Yes. I read that survey. I don't remember everything in it, but the overwhelming sense that I got from it is that people really love the Jones. They love its coziness, they love its size, they love its ambiance, they like its nooks and crannies, and what they really want were 2 things. Public parking along the side instead of staff-only parking. They also wanted wheelchair height desks and computer stations. I talked to somebody who said, I don't need fancy. This is a low-income person. I don't need fancy, I need computers. Anyway, and I think what we need is new schools, more than we need this very, very oversized, built for 51,000 people when we have about 15,000 year-round residents. Okay, 30 seconds. The amount of the grant would only cover the amount that the loan would cost in interest. That's one point that I wanted to make. And another is that there has been no serious public participation, although there are said to be many comment periods and public forums. I was at those public forums. They were not participatory. It was lip service only. You know, you can talk, but you're talking to a wall.
Okay, thank
As
you.
for ADA compliance.
Oh, thank you. Is that up?
Am I done? Okay.
Okay, one more question. I think one more? Yeah. That we have time for, so we can move on. What steps have been taken or should be taken to work with the Amherst community to work on a plan to renovate the Jones Library that has much more support? Okay, this time we'll start with Kitty.
The question is, how can there be more support for the renovation plans? Did I get that right?
Well, it says what steps have been taken or should be taken to work with the Amherst community to work on a plan to renovate the Jones Library that has much more support.
Well, I think that first of all, there should be a space use survey so that there is some information about how the current space, which people love so much, can be better utilized, because there are numerous rooms that are locked up and all they seem to have in them is empty boxes that should be like, you know, take a cutter and cut them up and lay them flat, I don't know, maybe recycle them. But there should be better space use of the Jones Library, and I think the public should be part of that, and the public should be apprised of that. And the public should also be asked what their priorities are in general for this town. Is it to build a big new library that goes almost out to the CVS parking lot and is modern and suburban looking and international style? Or is it perhaps to build new schools? Is it the fire station? What's the whole big picture for this town? I think we need a lot of discussion where people are actually listened to, the way we have it at town meeting, where people listen, they deliberate, they study up in advance, and they come to some conclusion. So public forums, public participation, civic engagement, and really listening rather than pretending to listen.
Okay, thank you.
We did hold several public forums. I think we can do more, and I think as the process moves forward, we are on the wait list now with the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. And when you apply for a grant, you apply for one library. You can't apply for branches in addition to the one library. So that is why the plan for the renovation expansion of the Jones at the time we applied did not include the branches. That doesn't mean we are not planning for the branches. We are. I live in South Amherst. I have used Munson Library for the 35 years I've lived here. So I'm very aware of the branches, their challenges, and their defects. And I think prior library boards obviously were not able to come to some kind of resolution of the bathroom situation in North Amherst. We are working on that, but it's, a lot of work needs to go into that, and prior boards were not obviously able to do that. I do think that we need to consider that if we do not get the grant, the town is still going to have to put in an equivalent amount of money in order to fix the building. Some of the deferred maintenance has been in hopes that we will be able to renovate and expand, although there have been fixes to certain parts of the library that have not been noted here. I think it is important that we meet the needs of our community. The community is very different from when I moved here 35 years ago, and we need to meet those needs.
Thank you. Sigurd?
I agree that we need to look at what the true needs of the community are for the library and what the community wants out of the library and where those services would be provided. When the planning was done for the demolition expansion, as I said, the branches were never mentioned. They should have been. When you do a survey and find out what kind of library services people are looking for, some of it is increased access, and for a lot of people, that would be at the North Amherst Library or the Munson Library. As Kitty said, increased parking was also a big issue for people. In general, people were very satisfied with the services that they got at the Jones in that survey. They didn't say they wanted a larger building. They didn't say they needed modern space, but they wanted the building to be improved. The other thing I wanted to say is that this demolition expansion, I believe, was just driven by the availability of some state money. And in order to get that state money, you had to expand. Well, if you don't really need what that expansion would get you, it's not a smart expenditure of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Surratt?
We held 24 open meetings, invited public comment in the development of the Jones Library renovation plan. We surveyed 900 users of the Jones Library, and they are indeed satisfied with the services provided by the Jones, but not with the spaces. We conducted public tours, invited anybody who wanted to go on a public tour to see the building, comment on the building. Things certainly have been changed in the design of the building plan as a result of the public comments. The next step is what we would call design development. and the public will be invited again to participate in the final design of a renovated and expanded Jones. The truth of the matter is, the situation of the Jones is like the situation of the schools. We have about $10 million in serious deferred maintenance needs, and that's not because the library hasn't been maintained. We've repaired the roof. We've repaired the HVAC system. We've insulated the building. We've painted the outside of the building. But there is more that needs to be done. Will the public be engaged? Yes. Will the public be satisfied? I hope so. Will the public be well served by a renovated and expanded Jones? I have absolute confidence that it will be.
Thank you. Okay, I was told one more question, and then we'll start back up with Kitty. What do you consider to be the primary function of the town library? And this is two parts. Is the current building adequate to serve this primary function?
I suppose that the primary function of the Jones Library and the branches is to provide information access to people. It's a community meeting place. It's a quiet place. It's also a place for kids to be introduced to the love of knowledge, of curiosity, to read the stories of other people, to read history, to get grounded in science. It's a wonderful resource that we should have available to us, and it is, by the way, nearly ADA compliant. I measured the stacks and the distance between the stacks. I have the pictures on my cell phone. You are welcome to contact me. It should be a place for everyone. And what else? Let's see. It's a place for people to dream. It's a place for people to expand their horizons. It's a place for people to get to know their neighbors and to discuss. It's a good place for learning English. It's a good place for learning Spanish. It's a good place for every person here to be able to mingle, no matter what their socioeconomic background is, no matter what their educational background is, and it should be a warm, welcoming place. And people love the Jones, and they love the way it operates, and I don't think they want it changed.
Thank you.
Libraries are different things to different people. People who walk in the door of a library are looking for experiences, books, DVDs, conversation, help with a computer, any number of things. We need to meet all of their needs. The current building doesn't do that. The children's librarian has to take all the little children through the library and down the stairs to the Woodbury room for crafts. There isn't enough room. A lot of families leave because there isn't enough room for all the children and the strollers and everything else in the children's room. There is no room for teens. One Friday afternoon, there were 150 teens in the library. There's no space for them. I had two boys. I would have much rather had them be in the library on a Friday afternoon than walking around town. I think it's really important that we understand that the library spaces don't work. You may like the nooks and crannies, but there are drug deals down there. We have had young people afraid of some of the people down there, and they don't want to come back because it's scary in the basement. So I think we need to look at the fact that the building doesn't function well as a library. It may be pleasant and charming, but it doesn't function as a really public library open to everyone. We need different kinds of spaces. We can maintain a lot of the wonderful parts of the library while still providing better service and spaces.
Thank you.
Well, I agree that a library is not one thing. It's many things to many different people, many different populations. One of the, I think, critical needs that a library meets is to provide equal access for particularly people of lower income, to have access to full range of knowledge, have access to computers, to get training, to get instruction in English as a second language, and also the access to all the resources that the library has. It also is an important community meeting place. But in Amherst, we're fortunate to have many different places in our community for meetings. So it's not the only place, it's just one of many. And lastly, I think that in looking at the space in the Jones Library, there was never a comprehensive space reorganization review to see how could we better utilize the space to meet the needs for the children's area, for example, by reorganizing the space in the library. So I think that's sort of an assumption that the current trustees went into when they said, let's just, blow up this
Okay, thank
the
you.
old edition and start fresh.
Libraries are places of love. People come to love the books and love the materials, love the special collections. Children come to our libraries and learn to love reading. Our libraries are community crossroads. They're one of the few places in this town where the rich and the poor, the old and the young, meet on equal terms. Our libraries foster diversity and recognize the diversity in our town. That's why in the Jones today, there are books and materials in 18 different languages. Our libraries recognize that not everybody can get to the library. That's why we have a vibrant homebound program in which 1,000 items were delivered last year to people who were unable to come to the library, the elderly and the sick. The library provides technology for those who can't afford it themselves. The library provides cultural vibrancy for our town. The library plays an important role as a good partner with the business and artistic community of our town. And our branch libraries, wow, our branch libraries, they are community hubs themselves. They energize their neighborhoods. People love those libraries. Libraries are places of love.
Okay, thank you. Now we will have 1 minute for your closing statement. And we're going to start with Tamsin Eli.
I have worked in libraries for over 40 years, and I've lived in Amherst for 35 years. I first ran for the board to bring my experience and commitment to work on behalf of the town to strengthen its libraries and keep them as community centers of learning open to all. And this is also why I am running for re-election. The board has worked well together to support all aspects of the library, staff, services, collections, and to guard our financial future. We secured a substantial state grant to renovate and expand the Jones. If this grant is rejected, the town will have to expend almost as much money as the grant would have required. Town funds will be needed for repairing and upgrading the existing building and making it fully accessible. But this building as currently configured does not function well nor equally serve all residents. I do believe in the future, in libraries of the future, not just the past. I would appreciate your vote to help move our libraries forward. Our community is changing and our libraries must, by necessity, change as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kitty?
I'm Kitty. As a persistent investigative reporter, as the founder of a small business, and as the family breadwinner, I've always taken responsibility for innovation, for every detail, for staying afloat, and for delivery of the goods. I can't understand the trustees' obsession with demolition and expansion. It would cost almost $50 million if you include interest. Our property taxes would increase, we would have to raise about $30 million in property taxes. The renovation, the upkeep and repair, deferred maintenance would cost more like $9 million. I'm very proud of our town, proud of our library. Vote for participation, civic engagement, vote no on the charter, keep town meeting, and vote for me, Kitty, for Jones Library trustee.
Okay, thank you. Austin?
Our libraries are thriving through the hard work of our magnificent staff and the dedication of the residents of the town of Amherst. Indications of this thriving are everywhere. The Jones is one of the busiest libraries in the state. The North Amherst Library and the Munson Library played vital roles in their neighborhoods. Our meeting spaces are used thousands of times a year. Last year, 676 people in this town donated over $81,000 to keep our library going. But there's more that needs to be done to ensure that our libraries continue to be places of hope, places that knit our town together, places where people who love books find refuge, and places that honor our history and point us towards the future. I bring experience and common sense to this important work, and I ask for your vote on March 27th.
Thank you. Sigrid?
I think it's time for a shift in priorities in the stewardship of the Jones Library. The focus has been on the demolition expansion while neglecting basic maintenance of our libraries. But there's no guarantee that Amherst voters will agree to a tax override that would mean even higher taxes in order to match state funds for an unnecessary library expansion. Instead, I would refocus priorities on maintaining and improving the libraries that we have. Amherst has a 3-building library system that provides valuable services to our community. Our library planning needs to be system-wide. Another important priority is to address the funding issues faced by the Jones, with improving its investment strategy, finding ways to economize, and building its endowment. We need to plan long-term. I'm Sigurd Nilsson, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we're going to switch panels. Will the candidates running for Select Board and School Committee please come up and be seated? And we'll take a few minutes to get everyone in place. Okay, we will begin with the 3 candidates for the Select Board. There are 3 candidates running for one 3-year term. There is 1 open seat, so these 3 candidates are all running for the same seat. They are Ivan Babian, right here, okay. Bob Greeny, and Doug Slaughter. Let's begin with your opening statement of 1.5 minutes. We'll begin with Ivan, and then we'll go to Bob Greeny, and then Doug Slaughter.
You know, we've been talking for 1.5 or for 12 years about building a new fire station, and it hasn't happened. I mean, why does it take so long for projects to go through committees and to come to fruition? You know, why? You know, as we're working out all these projects and things that need to get done around town, talking about the fire station, you know, why as a community don't we have like the fastest possible response times that we can have? Instead of building a main fire station, maybe build, you know, 2 smaller substations around town. But you know, as far as public safety goes, I mean, like one of the biggest things that I've been hearing is that you know, the public safety complex is not as staffed as it could be to, you know, to be able to have the fastest possible community response that they could. And that's something that should concern all of us. While we're talking about like funding and building, you know, various separate projects, we have our own public safety complex here right in front of us, which, you know, is a little bit understaffed. And I think that's something that should be addressed and that we could work out. I think one of the biggest issues that I've seen is a polarization between the
Okay, thank you. Okay, Bob.
I run for the Select Board in the interest of democracy and diversity. Study after study confirms that inclusion of diverse views in planning and decision-making leads to better outcomes. The Select Board and the Planning Board do not take advantage of the rich diversity of viewpoints in this town. On controversial issues where the town and town meeting divide 50-50, the Select Board is unanimous. Witness recent projects, elementary schools, the library, downtown building development, and the proposed charter. It is a flawed planning, policy-making process that does not include diversity of thought early and throughout the entire planning process. This flawed process is the real source of inefficiency, incorrectly blamed on town meeting. We will all benefit if we work together and include all voices from beginning and throughout the planning process. Research affirms that inclusion and diversity leads to better outcomes, be it large capital planning projects, economic development, housing, taxes, or potholes. Together, we can diminish divisiveness and promote unifying growth and development initiatives that reflect our collective vision and values.
Thank you. Doug?
Good evening. I'd like to begin by thanking the League of Women Voters for hosting this event tonight. It's an opportunity for us to meet with, or have the public get a chance to see each of us, and so I appreciate the opportunity. I'm running for Select Board to continue my service to the community. I have a fair amount of experience with Finance Committee, Joint Capital Planning Committee, serving on other boards and committees throughout town, and I think that experience serves me well when we come to making those difficult decisions that the Select Board has to make and working with town meeting to move the town forward. And we have a lot of things that this town wants to do. There are large capital projects as well as other capital items that we need, like paving our roads and supporting our recreational facilities in town. We want to do affordable housing. We want to shelter those that are unfortunate and not in housing to keep them safe during the winter months and summer months as well. We want to be wise and prudent with our finances and continue good financial management of our town. We want to work toward greater sustainability within our town as far as the efforts we take, whether it be the buildings we have or the tasks and people that we have working for us. We want to sustain that in a great way. We also have complex issues that come at us without our choosing, such as the legalization of marijuana. That is something as the law of the land. We have to take it on in a sensible and responsible way, and the experience that I have, I think, will help us move ahead on all those issues in a productive and constructive way for our community.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to turn to questions from the audience. The candidates, you'll all have 1.5 minutes to respond to the question. So our first question, we're going to start with Bob, and then go to Ivan, and then Doug. How important do you think checks and balances in government are? We're going to begin with Bob.
I think checks and balances are terrible. I think we should just decide things without any checks and balances. No. I'm not a very good student of history, but it seems like that's the essence of how our government works and how democracy really works well. So I don't know if I can talk for 1.5 minutes on this. Checks and balances are essential, and we should preserve any system in Amherst of government that we have must have strong checks and balances.
Okay, thank you. Ivan, you're next.
When you eliminate checks and balances, it opens the doors to egregious corruption. I don't think there's any room for that in our community. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to talk into the microphone? Do you have more? Or?
No, I'm a proponent of checks and balances, of course.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Doug?
So I think that obviously Our system is built upon our federal system, our state systems, our local systems are all built on checks and balances. It's important to have those in place. I think there are differing views on how those are executed or whether or not they exist in a classic sense or not. I think that this is a way of asking about the charter question. I think I'll be straightforward and say that I'm in favor of the charter. I think at where we are at this point in time in Amherst and the things that we want to do, I think that moving to the charter is the right choice for Amherst. That said, I think people have reasonable reasons for not thinking the charter is the right choice. But nonetheless, I do. I think it is the right choice for us moving ahead. I think there are sufficient checks and balances, and the primary check and balance of all our politicians is the ballot box. And one of the things that I think the new system allows for is a greater level of interaction by the community as a whole with their elected officials to check their efforts and whether or not they're doing what the voters really want. And so I think that there are checks and balances in the charter, and I think that there are opportunities for the community to get involved and engage with their government in a way that keeps it moving in a direction that they want it to move.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Ivan, we're going to begin with you. Describe how your attendance at select board meetings prior to your election influenced your decision to run, especially if you've never attended select board meetings.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah.
How did my attendance at select board meetings influence my decision to run for the select board, especially if I haven't attended
Yeah.
the meetings?
Good job here.
All right.
I've watched the minutes. I haven't actually attended any select board meetings. It wasn't the select board meetings that really galvanized me to step into this race. It was the charter proposal.
Okay, thank you. Doug?
So I've been in a lot of select board meetings, having served for the last 3 years as a select board member and the last just shy of a year as the chair of the select board. So I know exactly what goes on at those meetings and how hard it is to do the work. And I think that one thing that often is misunderstood about some of the voting that the select board does, we do get to a lot of unanimous votes. However, I would not say that we always agree. I think we spend a fair amount of time before we vote deliberating, discussing, modifying, yielding to one another, insisting on certain things. So if you watch our meetings in the wee hours, when we get to some of those more controversial or contentious things, and they also get spread out over several meetings. And so oftentimes those disagreements amongst members take several meetings to resolve, and so we do get to places of unanimity, but usually by virtue of the fact that we've really worked through the issue at hand in such a way as to get to a place that we could be in full agreement.
Okay, thank you.
I have attended select board meetings, but I think my reason for running for the select board does not come so much out of the meetings I attended, but the interaction of the select board with town meeting and the feeling that could be more productive and I can't think of the word, but just better working together. So there are lots of controversial issues in this town, and we often divide down the middle. I mean, really down the middle. 51, 49, 50.5%, 49.5%. And it seems to me, in my memory, all those issues, the select board is unanimous. So the people on the select board are good people. They're just too much the same. We need representation by other voices. So I have no issue that Mr. Slaughter is immensely qualified, but we need more diversity. This leads to better decision-making. It leads to less divisiveness, and it leads, in the end, to much better outcomes and better efficiency.
Thank you. Okay, next question. We're going to begin with Doug on this one, and then go to Bob, and then Ivan. What is the most significant issue that the Select Board will face in the coming year?
Oh, I think that's a fairly easy one to answer. What I really think is, regardless of the outcome of the election regarding the charter on the 27th, I think the Select Board is going to be very busy in working with that outcome. Whether we retain town meeting as our form of government, and we're seeking to re-engage people who might be inclined to disengage from being involved in public processes, or if we switch to a new form of government. And if we switch to a new form of government, we have a lot of things we want to do in this town. We're very interested in being an active and proactive community. And in order for a new form of government to get up and running, the Select Board will need to be working very closely and very diligently on making that transition as smooth and effective as possible, so that the new council will be able to become functional and effective as soon as possible. Because if they take office depending on how things go, it could be December, it could be after the new year, they're going to have to work on a budget within the first couple of months. And so that's a very difficult and large and complex task. And so all the things we can do to prepare for that transition will be critical work for the Select Board in the coming year. Likewise, if the charter does not pass and we're working with town meeting to continue its work, I think that the Select Board is going to be seeking to keep people engage with those proponents of town meeting in a way that keeps the town moving forward and keeps our work happening and being productive.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
I think the most important task of the Select Board is to set a new standard for the planning process. The standard that involves people in a meaningful way in the earliest stages of planning. Look at the schools, look at the library, look at the downtown building development. People were not engaged in those processes in the early stages, and we got controversial plans that split the town apart and ended up with half of the town unhappy. This can be avoided by a planning process, not public forums that are held after decisions are made and nobody's listened to, but everybody engaged in the planning at the earliest possible stage and throughout the planning. This is true of the Select Board, it's true of the school committee, it's true of the planning board, it's true throughout the town. This is the most important change we need to get together so that we're not angry at each other all the time.
Okay, thank you. Ivan?
Well, if we move to a new form of town government, then the transition over the next year to the new form of town government is going to be a priority. If not, then it's going to be working on communication with town meeting and the various other bodies in the planning board, so that things can get done around town. I mean, with the Charter Commission, you've basically seen a breakdown of communication, with town meeting, where they wouldn't even consider, any form of town meeting in the new form of government. And, those kind of communication problems are indicative of a larger problem.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we'll start with Bob on this round. What is your view on funding of social services in Amherst?
I don't know how. I'm in favor of it. I think social services are great, and I have some memory of town meeting increasing that funding over what was recommended by the Select Board. Obviously, there were budget constraints and those kinds of problems, and I'm a thrifty person, ask anyone that knows me. But social services is not the place to cut when you're talking huge capital planning projects and lots of spending. We can find those minimal funds that we're putting into social services, and we can do that. We definitely should be doing that.
Okay, thank you. Ivan?
I'd like to see more resources for battered women and disabled homeless men around town. You know, we have a wonderful system in place right now, but it isn't enough. I mean, people are still being turned away. We have maybe 6 beds for homeless women, and it really kills me to see people caught out in the freezing cold. You know, when we could, as a community, we could address these shortcomings. You know, it's also a matter of public safety. So I think we should have more funding devoted to social services around town, and there are a couple of places that I could think of that really could use it.
Okay, thank you. Doug?
So I think the struggle in serving on the select board and previously on the finance committee in the conversation about funding social services is not that people don't want to fund them. I think the difficulty for the town to fund social services is it's very difficult from the resource standpoint. I think towns are much more limited in our resources and our ability to generate revenue for the purposes of funding social services. And so, you know, when we have, by and large, property tax as our one tool to raise funds, we're dependent upon the state for aid. That's about 20% of our budget, and when they make a choice that reduces state aid, we're in a much more difficult circumstance to fund the things that we are committed to doing, like paying our employees and funding their retirements and providing them health insurance. And so those things are difficult decisions that have to be made as far as when resources are limited, which they always are. And so it would be nice to fund social services at a greater level, absolutely. I think the other thing, though, is we also need to consider that a lot of things that we do that aren't necessarily classically considered social services serve that purpose as well. Our schools serve as social service agencies in a lot of ways. They serve a lot of meals to kids. They provide a lot of supports that are what would be classically considered social services. So I think we support those in a lot of ways, and I think we should be proud of how we support those. It would be great to support them more. I think we have to have great context when we think about and discuss these issues, because it's very difficult.
Okay, thank you. Well, we have one more question. We'll start with Ivan. Can Amherst maintain its rural, small-town character without over-reliance on business development? Is this the push-pull you can see in the community? If so, what is your solution and why?
To limit major development and major construction to the business district, and I think that you know, if people and property owners that in the business district or in the Amherst Center want to, you know, build developments, fine. But the people in you know, North Amherst and South Amherst are not going to want that, you know, and that should be respected. And you know, we should be developing, because we should be using this development to generate tax revenue, so that we can do more things as a community, so that we can fund social services, so that we can staff the public safety complex, and you know, if it can come out of development, you know, it's more palatable than having it come out of property taxes.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go to Bob.
Natural development and I think we should grow and develop in the way that the pressures around us are leading us. I don't think it's a wise strategy to think that forced growth and development are going to lead to lower taxes. I don't think there's any evidence to support that. So if we need more housing, we need more housing, and we need to do something about it. But we need diverse housing. We don't need just the kind of housing we're getting. And if there's business to be had, then businesses should come and develop. And we should let the businesses expand. But providing incentives for business growth with the hope that that's going to lead to lower taxes, this is not a strategy that I would subscribe to. So, the small town character. By all means, we can have the growth and development we need and maintain the charming New England small town character of this town. I have no doubt about it.
Okay, thank you. Doug?
So I would agree with you on that. I think that we can maintain a lot of the physical aspects of our community that we love and cherish, but at the same time allow some development. And what that requires is a process of particularly zoning and conversations about zoning and where to make changes or not make changes, or what kinds of changes that allow for the kinds of growth or development that looks like we want it to look and houses the kinds of things we want it to house, whether it be people or businesses, and promotes some advancement of the development within our community. Given that property tax is our primary source of income, it is built upon the concept that we have to have and maintain property values. We either have to raise those property values as far as having the values of things that are already built be sustained and grow in value, or new things being built or things being remodeled in such a way as to promote their value and create a greater value and therefore greater tax revenue, which allows us to do the things we'd like to do as a community. So I think we have to have good conversations about how and what we want, where we want them, and be willing to listen to each other about that and be able to work forward in a constructive way and a thoughtful way to shape our community. Because not making anything happen the change will happen whether we are active in it or not active in it. We should be active in it, and we need to find a way to work together to move in that direction.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, candidates. Now we would like to hear your closing statement. You will have 1 minute to make your closing statement. Again, I'm going to reverse the order. I'm going to begin with Doug this time, and then Bob, and then Ivan.
Well, again, I'd like to thank the League for hosting us tonight. It's a pleasure to come and speak to you and to present my points of view on a variety of things in front of town. It's been an honor to serve the town in the last 3 years as a select board member. And I think there's a lot of more work that I'd like to do for the community and help move it ahead. It's been an honor to work with my colleagues on the select board. I think we're a very productive and experienced group that gets along well and works well together. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I would ask for your vote on March 27th for select board. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to stay or leave? Or Evan, would you like to take your dog out, or are you okay? Okay, good. All right, thank you. Now we're going to turn to our last group of candidates down there.
Oh, you missed us.
Oh, closing statement. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so now you have. I'm really thrown off. We'd like to hear your closing statement.
Am I next?
You're next, yes.
Okay, there are many voices and viewpoints missing in select board deliberations. These voices are also missing on important planning and policymaking boards and committees. This deficiency of diversity of thinking results too often in divisive proposals that are difficult to implement. This leads to divisiveness and lack of efficiency, incorrectly blamed on town meeting. We all agree we want good schools, libraries, recreational and senior services, reasonable taxes, and no potholes. A philosophy of radical inclusion and wide participation will result in outcomes we want. We are Amherst. We are book and we are plow. We are visionary and we are practical.
Okay, thank you. Ivan, I'm sorry.
I'm going to get back to what I was saying about polarization and that I've noticed it like serious like polarization between town meeting and the charter committee and communication issues, and I do oppose the new town charter, and even just looking at it, it's by limiting town meeting. I mean, you take away a political body that anybody from town can engage in. You know, anyone can go in and sign up and run for town meeting, and participate in the political process. And I just feel that by eliminating it, what's being done is that it's silencing the majority of the town's voices and the minority voices, and it's just something that bothers me.
Oops.
Okay. That we should be engaging more people to engage in the political process than closing it out. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now we're finished, right? Sorry about that. Okay, now we're going to go to the other end of the table. Our last group are running for school committee. We have 3 candidates running for 2 3-year seats. They are again in alphabetical order: Ben Harrington, Allison McDonald, and Carrie Spitzer. Okay, we'll begin with Ben with your 1.5-minute opening statement, and then next will be Allison, and then Carrie.
Thank you. I'm Ben Harrington. I'm a veteran of the United States Army Corps of Engineers. I'm a second-generation single father. I have 2 sons here in the school system, one in the 3rd grade at Crocker Farms, Andre, and a very tall 9th grader at the high school. I'm also a union member belonging to AFSCME through my job here in the school system. I'm also a basketball coach. This weekend, we just finished our season right here in this very building. Go Huskies. I'm running because I want to serve as a bridge of communication between people that feel like they have not been heard and the school system itself, and that includes students. I'm a strong advocate of the dual language learning education, as well as a strong advocate, and I'm very excited about our food service program and how that impacts our students. And I'm also interested in exploring sustainable building solutions in terms of improving our infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Allison?
Hi, I'm Allison McDonald, and I'm running for Amherst School Committee. I moved to the area with my family 15 years ago, and we chose Amherst for its vibrant community and its reputation for great schools. Our 2 sons have both attended Fort River School, and the older one is now here in the middle school, and they're over here. The diversity of students and the quality of the teachers and staff have made their learning experiences truly special. Yet the teachers and staff's ability to overcome the poor physical environment is not sustainable, and the challenges faced affect not just Fort River or Wildwood families, but our entire town. When families choose other schools through choice, charter, or private education, or pick homes in other towns, the fabric of our community is frayed. I've spent over 20 years in career in marketing and communications, and since 2015 I've been at a nonprofit in Hadley. I've been working hard to understand the needs and desires of diverse groups and leveraging that insight into creative, financially sound solutions for stakeholders. With your support, I will apply these skills to helping the school committee address the key challenges facing our schools in town. These are: 1, fix the crumbling infrastructure of our elementary schools; 2, address the changing enrollment demographics and overall decline; and 3, build broad community engagement and outreach, which in many ways is foundational in addressing the other 2 challenges. We all want our schools to continue to provide a great educational experience for all kids in our community. With your support, I'll work hard to ensure that happens through solutions that leverage the voices of everyone in our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Hi, my name's Carrie Spitzer. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event tonight and for everybody for coming out. Last time I was under these lights was around 1995 in a production by the Latin Club. I played Benvolio and Romeo and Juliet. And, I was one of those kids who would rush from theater to drama, from, ski team, and I really had an excellent education here in the Amherst Public Schools. And when I had kids of my own, decided to move back. And the reason I'm running is because I'd really like to keep the schools strong and to give the next generation of students the same wonderful experience that I did. You know, the schools gave me a strong foundation and allowed me to pursue higher education and also a career in public service. After college, I worked in New York City as a budget and policy analyst for several years. I finished a PhD in urban policy and planning in 2016. And today I work as a health services researcher at Bay State. I'm much more comfortable behind the scenes, but I'd like to bring these budget and policy analyst skills to the schools. We have committed administrators, an engaged community, wonderful teachers here, but we do face some challenges. We face budget challenges, we face infrastructure challenges, especially in Wildwood and Fort River. I'm also excited about opportunities like the dual language immersion program that's being explored by school committee right now. I had a wonderful experience serving on the enrollment working group and would just like to continue to be involved in the schools. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to turn to questions submitted by the audience. You will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. And we'll begin this round with Allison. What is your most significant qualification to serve on the school committee?
My most significant qualification, I would say it's really, as I mentioned in my opening statement, my 20 plus years in marketing and communications. One of the priorities that the superintendent has outlined for his work and for the school committee's work going forward is outreach and to promote the great things that are happening in our schools today. And that is an area that I can really help. The other aspect of my career is that in product innovation and communication is really about reaching out to diverse people, people unlike myself, and really understanding their lives, their needs, their desires and hopes, and translating that into solutions and workable, financially sound options. That is something that I excel at in my day-to-day job and something that I hope to bring to the school committee.
Okay, thank you. Ben?
Yeah, single word answer, diversity. Diversity in skills, diversity in perspective, and I'm also the only person here that comes from a low income neighborhood, and so I also have economic diversity. Altogether, I have a different perspective to add to the school committee, and I think that's probably the strongest point that I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Carrie?
So I think what I bring is my experience working in public service, specifically working both as a budget and policy analyst, and also I have a strong background in urban planning. And I have the ability to kind of see the big picture. It was mentioned in the earlier discussion that our schools are part of our community and they are meeting more and more students' needs in terms of not just educational needs, but in terms of meeting hunger needs, in terms of helping parents who might be experiencing homelessness, in terms of dealing with needing a warm coat, glasses. These are things we heard when we were doing our interviews in the enrollment working group. And having that background, I worked at the Independent Budget Office in New York City, where I authored nonpartisan reports on issues around juvenile justice, on issues around Department of Homeless Services budgets, and affordable housing. So these reports, the one I was most proud of was one that showed the high cost of the juvenile justice system, how it was expensive, ineffective, and racist, and it was used by advocates to advocate for change in the system. I'm really proud of that work. And I'd like to bring these skills, these research skills, and these ability to see bigger picture policy issues to the school committee, because I think our town needs that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is a long question, so we're going to start with Ben. I felt that having an early education center with increased preschool opportunities, including all grades 2 to 6 in one building, could have served inequity imbalances among the current schools. Were you for or against the school project? If opposed, what would have been a better solution to the integrity issues? And if in support of that project, what were the pros and cons of the plan?
Okay, so
You got that?
yeah, so I guess I'll lead with the fact that I was actually against the project. In terms of equity, I don't believe that you can meet goals of equity based on location or just the building. Equity is it's a cultural thing. You have to have that as a goal, and it doesn't matter where that happens, right? So that's part of it. Also, I think in terms of equity, the location of it kind of disproportionately affected different subsets of our community. So that's equity, the equity aspect of it at all. But in terms of addressing the issues that our buildings face, I think that we certainly have had a general idea of what we needed to address in each of the buildings. And Fort River and Wildwood both had their laundry lists of needs, and we could have addressed those with ongoing repairs and by not deferring maintenance that was necessary over a broad period of time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Carrie?
So I got back into town politics when the school project was brought forward, and I was a supporter. There are a lot of reasons I supported it, and I think there are a lot of different types of equity, and one of the issues that would have been addressed by the school plan that was a pro was, I talked to neighbors who have to bring their kids to, my kids go to Wildwood, and their kids have to go to Fort River because they need special services that are only available at Fort River, and they were getting bused over there. Also, I also talked to neighbors whose children are sick because of Fort River schools, and they keep getting pneumonia. And this is actually something that was going on in the 90s still, when I was a student in the elementary schools. So there are a lot of different types of equity, and I think we need to talk about all of them. The pros were, having windows in all of the classrooms, natural light in my son's room, things that I think all of our students deserve. I think all of our teachers also deserve to be in buildings that are buildings they want to be in. They spend all day there, after hours too, and they deserve buildings that are supportive and healthy, and I'm just worried. I'd like to look forward, but I'm not sure what that next step is in terms of improving our town's infrastructure, and there really isn't a clear path forward right now. Thank you.
Allison?
So, like Carrie, I was in support of the new school building project, but rather than go through and relitigate and redebate a project that is no longer on the table, I'd rather take learnings from that and look at what were the pros there that we need to make sure we carry forward in whatever path we take. As well as learn from the cons or the mistakes that were made along the way, or the significant concerns that were barriers for a lot of people to get behind the project. The pros, like Carrie, so my kids are at Fort River, and the value of natural light in a classroom is just undebatable. But I also think that it did, by bringing all of the town's school children together, it would have provided, and any solution that we would want to take forward should provide equal access to services for all children without having to divide families and without having to be a significant burden on transportation. The con is if there's any transitions for children between schools, among schools, there's other concerns with transportation. All of those would need to be addressed and included in whatever plan that we take forward to make sure that we're learning from the past and taking that forward and ensuring that we're presenting solutions that address everybody's concerns.
Okay, thank you. Next question. We'll begin with Carrie this time. What are your thoughts on how to retain families, especially those who go elsewhere because their above grade level child is not being challenged?
Well, last night I was at the school committee meeting, and I'm very excited to, I don't know how many people have heard the news, but Dr. Morris was proposing to start a dual language immersion program starting in fall of 2019 in our kindergarten classes at Fort River. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of steps between this initial idea and seeing it happen, but I'm really optimistic that it will happen. Who knows if, the exact details. But I think a program like this would provide benefits for both English language learners, bilingual kids, and also monolingual English speakers now. And it would also make our schools more attractive to those who are choosing to send their children elsewhere, either charters or homeschooling or private schools. I find the schools here, my own experience was that I had a very rich and challenging experience. I can't tell you how many of my classmates have gone on to elite private schools or chosen other paths and really found fulfilling careers. I think our Amherst public schools are really doing a great job, so.
Okay, thank you. Allison?
I think that the question is getting at what the heart of the question really is getting at differentiated learning and how do we address the needs of all children, both the children that are performing above grade level as well as those that need extra supports just to get to grade level. And that's a significant challenge when we have as diverse a population in our schools today and in continuing to grow more and more diverse. I think some of the things that are happening in our schools today, some of the innovation and pilots that we see in the different elementary schools, such as the co-taught classroom model, where we have a special ed teacher teaching alongside a general ed teacher, is one way where we can provide that differentiated learning to meet all children where they're at in the classroom. Another, at last night's school committee meeting, there was talk about not just the dual language immersion, but also ways to build in themes and focuses to differentiate the different elementary schools. I think it was Principal Yaffe that was talking about building in project-based learning into the schools and making that a focus. And that's another way to have sort of the child-directed learning that would be able to meet the child and challenge the child where they want to and choose to be challenged.
Okay, thank you. Ben? Oh, go ahead.
I'm also a staunch advocate of dual language learning, and very excited to see that ball is starting to roll here. I think we can definitely bring in more students that way. Also, I think as far as making our schools more palatable for other people, we need to celebrate the things that we are doing well, the programs that are working. We need to definitely champion our hardworking teachers and staff in our schools as a selling point to bring people from outside of the district into it, to entice people to choice in, basically. I also think improvements to the infrastructure and the learning environment, these things actually help the individual students and as well help sell our school system a little better to the outside population as well at the same time, covering all the ground, I guess. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, this round will begin with Allison, and then Ben, and then Carrie. How should the school committee deal with families who are in debt with lunch money?
Very, very simple answer. I think we should forgive that debt as much as we can. Whether we do that through our own municipal or school budget or seek support and outside donors to support those families and to forgive that debt, I think that's a very important thing. No child, no family should go hungry at school, and that shouldn't really be a barrier. Being in debt should not be a barrier to them getting a healthy lunch.
Okay, thank you. Ben?
Well, this is a subject that's very near and dear to me. I've had experiences with both free and reduced lunch for my kids, and still ended up incurring debt that was ultimately forgiven. I think we've done a real good job. I'm proud to be part of the school system, a school system that has decided not to shame its students for not being able to cover that debt by giving them cold cheese sandwiches and such. So I think that's a very good step forward, but definitely debt forgiveness. And I think with our new food service director, Ryan Harb, he has a vision going forward of making all lunch free anyway. So that's probably the single best way to deal with school lunch debt. Also, the bringing in the breakfast after the bell program next year to take away costs as far as breakfast for students, and taking away the stigma for the students who need free and reduced lunch. If everybody's getting it, then there's not the odd kid out, basically, or nobody's being stigmatized for being the poor kid. That also reduces, that's 50% of the debt in terms of food services. Also, looking at ways that we can actually give free lunch to all students. I mean, that's a priority for me. It's a priority for Ryan Harb as well, and I'd like to see that happen.
Okay, thank you. Carrie?
Yeah, I would also, I'm very proud that our school system has taken a no-shame policy towards school debt for lunches. I wonder if there may be more outreach we can do and more efforts we can do to make sure that everybody who's eligible is enrolling in free and reduced lunch. That might help reduce some of the burden on families. I know it's an entitlement, but just because it's an entitlement doesn't mean that everybody who's eligible is taking advantage of it. And in terms of school lunch, I also think that, you know, through our work in the enrollment working group, we heard similar things, that doing breakfast in the classroom would be one way of reducing stigma. Providing lunch for everybody, I've heard, is a model that works well across the country, and I'd be in favor of that too. And I'm excited to see, as somebody who is a vegetarian, I'm going to go out and say that in front of everybody. Hopefully you won't vote against me because of that. But now my son actually has a lot more options, and I've been so happy to see that. It's not all meat every day. So as we continue and move forward in that, I think it's great to I'm really excited about the food services and the changes that are happening in our school. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. We'll start with Ben. School safety is a major issue. What are your thoughts on this issue?
Okay, in 1 minute.
No, 1.5.
1.5 minutes. Well, we'll get it right off the table right away. I'm definitely not in favor of arming teachers or staff. I guess I veer from our commander-in-chief in that. But I think policies like restorative justice go a long way in terms of creating an overall safe environment, as well as contributing to the community aspect of our schools. I think forming strong communities keeps us safer in a lot of different ways. I mean, there's strength in numbers, and there's comfort in numbers as well. And so we create less situations where we're looking at kids that are going to lash out if they feel more part of the overall community. I think that's imperative. And also, there are definitely measures we can take within the school's structure in order to keep our children safe. The installation of the reverse locks, these types of things, the ALICE procedures, and shelter-in-place policies and procedures, and practicing those. I think those handle like the physical needs.
Okay, thank you. Carrie?
So the first thing I'd like to say is just how proud I am of the students I saw on Facebook and throughout the country, but especially here at home, speaking out and walking out on March 14th. I'm looking forward also to participating on March 24th. There's going to be a rally on Saturday. Also, you know, speaking out for gun control. I also agree with Ben, we should not have guns in the schools. You know, this question came up at Wildwood, and one of the things I really want to make sure is that our schools don't become places that are overly concerned with safety. I mean, we have an issue in this nation, you know, with the school-to-prison pipeline, and I don't want to see, you know, police officers throughout the schools. I think it's really important that students feel safe here, and for a lot of students, that would mean not having police presence and not. And I think we need to just make sure the students are engaged in the conversations in an appropriate way. You know, I have a kindergartner. He did not participate in the walkout. He probably won't participate with me in the march. I want to keep him to enjoy his childhood. So, thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Allison?
I would echo the sentiment of my my colleagues here that I'm not in favor of arming school teachers or putting guns in our schools at all. I also would echo a little bit Ben's comments about our schools are not in a vacuum. They're very much woven and integrated within the fabric of our community. So safety in the schools is really about safety in our community as much as it is just in the classroom. So, and I think you all talked about it in the select board comments, that it really is about the social services as well that the school is providing to the families of the children within the schools as much as it is about what's happening within the building itself. There are some real I would say I'm happy with the safety measures that our schools are taking today. I'm also pleased to see the changes that they are incorporating as we move forward to elections, and some of the changes that they made there. Is there more that we can do? Absolutely, because when children come into the school, they're bringing their worlds in with them, and ensuring that they are safe at home and that we are addressing all of their needs throughout their lives is really going to help improve safety within the school as well.
Okay, thank you. Next question. We'll start with, I'm trying to rotate here. We'll start with Ben and then Allison and then Carrie. The proposed building of a mega school in Amherst brought about a heated debate in the community. What do you propose we do about our elementary school and middle school?
Okay. I'm definitely interested in getting involved with the Fort River Feasibility Committee, and we'll be doing so shortly, I believe. I think we definitely know, we've outlined the improvements that need to take place in this building as well as Fort River and Wildwood. I'm definitely in favor of an reno demo project at the Fort River site with sustainable construction solutions in mind, including solar power, these sorts of things, moving towards a zero net or a net zero outcome for power production and these sorts of things. Solutions that drive down utility costs over the greater period of time. These are things we need to think about. We also need to think about being environmentally responsible in the solutions that we come up with. The environment inside the school is as important as the environment that we leave to the kids that are going to exit this school one day. And so I think we need to be responsible about the decisions that we make going forward in terms of improvement and additions to our schools.
Okay, thank you. Allison?
Last year, we turned away $34 million in funding from the state that would have given us first-class school buildings for all of our elementary children in the school, in the town, sorry. And that is unfortunate. That's probably an understatement, a significant understatement. We are facing over $11 million over the next 6 years just to maintain the schools that we have that are not ideal learning environments for many children in the community. We still will not have natural light in our rooms, in our classrooms. We will probably not have collapsing ceiling tiles or dripping ceilings and closed libraries in our elementary schools, but we will still have a suboptimal learning environment in many ways. So for me, that is really a number one priority, is addressing that. I'm excited about the Fort River Building Committee, but that is going to be many years in the coming. So we do need to work together as a community to figure out what the path forward is going to be to address many of those issues that we did not address with by turning down the money in the plan for last year. The middle school is certainly part of that. There is dripping ceiling tiles here as well, but I think our top priority has to be our elementary schools and fixing those soon.
Okay, thank you. Carrie?
I wish I had a silver bullet solution for this problem. I think, like Allison, I was very disappointed when town meeting turned away the $34 million from the state. I don't know how we're going to do it and not. I just don't know where the money's going to come from. And as somebody who has looked at capital budgets and thought about these issues, as stated before, we get property tax revenue, state aid, and outside of that, there aren't a lot of other options other than the grant that we just turned away. So I'm optimistic that we'll find some solutions, but I can't say what those solutions are going to be now. I think it's going to take a lot of time, hopefully a lot of community engagement, because I think we do need that in order to come up with a solution that's successful. I think that was one of the things we learned from the failure of the project that would have replaced Wildwood with a two-wing school. So the middle school is also something that's a regional issue. It's not just up to Amherst School Committee, so that's going to have to involve Pelham, Leverett, Shutesbury, and again, I'm not sure what's going to happen. There's talks about whether or not the high school might be expanded to include students in the middle school. I think it's really early, and I don't have a position yet on that, but I think it's definitely something we need to be open to all sorts of solutions, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Now we would like to hear your 1-minute closing statement, beginning with, we'll begin with Allison. She's in the middle there. Allison, and then Carrie, and then Ben.
We have multiple challenges, but we also have multiple opportunities ahead with our schools. But none of them can be successfully addressed or implemented in our community without building broad community engagement and outreach in developing the solutions. As I've demonstrated, I have the communication skills and experience to be especially helpful in accomplishing this as a member of the school committee. Throughout my career, I've developed the listening, goal-setting, and solution-finding skills that will help ensure all voices are heard, all concerns, hopes, and ideas are brought to the table when crafting solutions. We are united in wanting our schools to provide a great educational experience for all kids in our community. With your support, I commit to working hard to leverage the voices of everyone in our community to map our path forward. Thank you.
First of all, I just want to thank everybody again and the League of Women Voters. I've really enjoyed tonight's conversation. I started off tonight by looking back a little bit, and I do look back fondly on the Amherst Public Schools and the experience I had, but I think it's really important that we look forward, especially with the challenges we're facing. When I was a student here, we had much higher enrollment, and now it's declining, and that's affecting our ability to meet the needs of our students, and also to maintain those really rich extracurriculars, things like language, the arts, things that I think really make Amherst schools exceptional and one of our town's greatest assets, not just for our students, but also to attract folks to the area and to keep people in Amherst and excited about Amherst. So I'm hoping to look forward and to use my budget and policy analysis skills to serve the town and to serve the schools I really love. I hope for your vote on March 27th. Thank you very much.
With the changing demographics in our schools, we definitely need to have an authentic voice and representation of the people who are part of that change. I have no choice but to understand what it's like to be a single father or a single parent in general, trying to make ends meet and expecting the greatest possible educational outcomes and opportunities for my children. There's no course that will teach me that. Life is teaching me that every day. And so I feel as though I can be an authentic voice, a very realistic voice, and a voice that people are already familiar with within this changing demographic in our schools. And I look forward to working with my colleagues on the school committee towards representing the unheard voices. And I ask you to vote for me on March 27th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a word from Cynthia.
I wanted to invite all of you to be involved with two things that the League of Women Voters of Amherst will be doing. We are going to have a sister march with the March for Our Lives in Washington, D.C. The League of Women Voters is sponsoring this. Saturday, March 24th, we're meeting at Kendrick Park, and we will march to the town common. We're going to have the Raging Grannies, and we've got a lot of people coming from the university and the colleges, as well as the high school. So please show up. It's at 10 o'clock on Saturday, March 24th. Our second event will be April 6th, and it's our second annual Civics Fest, which was really fun last year. We'll be having that at the Amherst Regional High School Auditorium. It's from 7 until 8:30 p.m. on a Friday night. And we need teams to participate in the trivia part. So if you're interested in getting a group together, it can be your family, your friends, somebody that you work with. We'll love to have you as a team.
Okay, thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you, candidates, for appearing on the panels. Thank you to the League members who have helped this evening with gathering questions, sorting questions, and being timekeepers. Also, thanks to Amherst Media for taping this and replaying it between now and Election Day. It will also be online. Remember to go to the polls and vote on Tuesday, March 27th. The polls are open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. Thank you. It was a pleasure being with you tonight. Good evening.
In spite of what I